What's up guys, welcome back. We're gonna do our 4th installment of the Crux build. So if you haven't watched the series, go back and watch the series first. We go through building this entire bike step by step. We break down pricing. We basically do a full build on this thing. But Thomas has had this bike for a couple months now. He's been riding it. He's made a few small changes and we're just gonna check in with him, see how he's liking it, see what he changed, see what he wants to change, kind of check in, see what he's been riding, and just get like an overall feel for this build that we did. I already can tell that we made a few small changes since we built this bike. You know, a couple more accessories we got a bag and some flat protection back here on the back of the seat, but I'm noticing the cranks have changed. Looks like the bars may have changed, or at least positioning wise. What changes have we made so far?
Yeah, well, before we go through changes, let's kind of hit on the things you guys nailed. Like the gearing has been perfect. Every ride I've been on has been that magical sweet spot of like 10 miles, 1,000 feet of climbing. So, you know, we did a 45-mile ride the other day, 4,500 feet of climbing. We have some steep stuff around us.
Yep.
The gearing has been absolutely perfect. I get what people mean now with the whole 13 speed thing and having more gears and less hops, but for me, it hasn't been that much of a difference to me where I would have wanted to give up that 52 tooth in the rear.
Yeah.
Like, the range is still the thing for me. I'll deal with a little bit different of a cadence.
Yep.
Since I'm not a road guy, I'm more of a mountain guy. Sometimes, you know, we're used to kind of gritting it out. So
And
it's been good for me.
This is more of an exploring bike for you, right? It's not
100%.
as race oriented. So, you know, it's not as huge of a detriment to have, you know, gaps in your gearing when you're kind of just out exploring. But our hills here are really steep. I have standard Explorer, so I don't have a 52 tooth on my Crux, and that can make some hills almost impossible to climb because you're in that sweet spot of, I need to stand up to grind this out, but if I stand up, I'm gonna do a burnout, and I can't get my weight in the right spot, but I don't have the strength to sit down and hammer out a 46 tooth chainring with a 42 tooth in the rear. So
yeah, when you're getting into like a 50 cadence and
yeah.
you're like, oh,
it can be hard to hammer something
up.
like that out. But when you go down to this lower cadence and the effort's a little bit lower, I can sit down, you can get your weight over the rear wheel so that you don't spin out, and you can actually climb the hill properly.
Yeah, now talking about spinning out, the one thing that you probably thought I'd change first, which I haven't changed yet, is the tire. This tire hauls on the road, hauls on gravel roads. The grip, I figured, you know what? I'm gonna get used to riding with the tire that's not that grippy, and then when I do switch to something grippy, I'll be that much quicker and have that much confidence downhill. But when you need to pop up on this tire, it spins out almost immediately. So still looking at which tire I want to change to. I'm really torn between, these are 42 width. I'm gonna go 45 for sure. I'm just between, do I go Rambler and I have, you know, a much knobbier tire than this. Chris and I might go race the rock cobbler soon, so I'm thinking I'll need something with a little bit better mud protection for me. And then, or do I go with the Reaver tire that's kind of an in-between? It's still got a nice fast rolling tread, might be a little bit better at lower pressures. It's very similar to the tire I'm running on my XC bike.
Yeah, and that'll be good too because it'll feel very similar.
Yes.
And you won't have too much of a shock between setups. And this is the S-Works Pathfinder, so you do have a little bit less tread, just a brand new tire, just because for S-Works they shaved some weight down and this tread down the middle is not quite as large. So you would have even more grip if you just went to a standard, like a Pathfinder Pro. But I think I agree, especially for the rock cobbler, to get something with some bigger knobs, a little bit more mud protection.
And then with everybody being so like concerned with aero, I went with a pretty deep wheel set here.
Yep.
It really taught me the value of a light, short wheel set versus a tall, heavier aero wheel set. Mm-hmm. This bike feels really planted and it really starts to pick up speed as I get 14 miles an hour plus. It's definitely harder to accelerate on this bike.
Totally.
My XC bike is around the same weight. It's got 1,200 gram wheels where this has 17 or 1,800 gram wheels. Mm-hmm. That's pretty noticeable.
Yep.
I like to think I'm gonna race this bike and over the hump this next year, but I am a little nervous about the quick accelerations on the race course.
Yeah, I mean, that's something to definitely, like, A lot of gravel riding is long, wide open gravel roads where you're trying to sustain 16, 17, 18 miles an hour. And that's where the deep dish aero wheels really come into play. That's super helpful. But a lot of our riding around here is like punchy descents, punchy climbs, punchy, like sharp turns. And that's where you're going to notice a detriment to having a heavier wheel set, because it doesn't slow down as fast, it doesn't speed up as fast. And even turning, you're a little bit less agile with just having more rotating mass.
Yeah,
So,
and I think I would notice that more if I didn't have such a good hub on this bike.
yeah.
Like the
these
quick
wheels
engagement
are
here,
sweet.
I still get power down right away, so it's not as bad, but I do notice the weight a little bit back there.
Yeah, I mean, this bike, I mean, we weighed it and there was a ton of controversy in that last video. It's not light, but that has to do with a few different things. I mean, it's got a mountain bike drivetrain, which is way heavier than what you would typically get on a gravel bike. It has, you know, some fairly chunky wheels. It has a dropper post, so you're adding an extra pound just in a dropper post.
And onto that, I don't need this dropper.
And it's an aluminum frame,
I-
so there's some weight there.
I thought that the dropper was going to be a game changer on this bike, and maybe it's because I've gotten used to riding XC with the taller seat post. I could, you know, go without a dropper here and not be that bummed.
Yep.
Maybe there's a couple steep spots, but I'm going so slow anyway on those in the descents that the dropper has not been that beneficial to me. There's even times where it's windy, fast single track where I like having it up because it's another contact point on the bike.
Yep.
And
I feel
I'm
like you're almost
slowing down.
steering with your butt.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree with you there. When I got my Crux, I was like, you know, I came from mountain biking and I was like, I have to get a dropper because this is unrideable. I can't figure out how to get around, how to maneuver this bike with the post up. And I didn't want to bite the bullet. It's almost like $700, $800 to put a dropper on. And I just haven't done it. And now I don't really see the need. I'm fine without it. Like
Yeah.
I almost don't need to, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I think another game changer on this bike and something that I will not be changing is the levers.
Yes, these red levers, it's already infected our shop builds. I mean, we've had one or two guys already go out and get their own red levers for their bikes just
Yeah.
because it's the new shape that they did plus the blip is game changing. It is so much more comfortable. The stock levers are hard to reach. You're kind of in that Goldilocks of like, if I make them close enough to reach, they hit my fingers. If I make them far enough where they break good, I can't reach them. And these things have been
Yeah.
so much better.
I find myself, I'm watching you guys descend. I'm up on top the whole time.
Yeah.
And feeling very confident. And there's times where I see you guys switching back and forth and I'm like, oh, maybe I should be in the drops, but I'm so comfortable up here. And maybe it's not I'm used to just that position more on a mountain bike, but I find myself doing long rides with some technical single track descents, staying up top and really just one single finger braking.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's the big thing with my force setup. Single finger braking off the top is not happening.
Yeah.
There's no way that I'm putting that much force through the brake levers on with a force setup with just one finger. So to be able to do that is key. Speaking of braking, we didn't show it in the video because this came out after, but we've got our new billet flat mount brake adapters on this bike, and it is the last finishing piece to really tie this build together. We did our champagne gold with copper hardware because the whole bike's built with copper hardware, but this is our new billet brake adapters that we released. It fits on basically every road bike and every gravel bike. And then we do have them on the website now with filtering to help you search for your specific bike to make it easier to figure out what you need. So moving on, I guess, component changes. I see the cranks aren't the same as those 5-dev titaniums that we put on there. What did we go with?
So 5Dev had sent us a set of those cranks for my bike. We put them on here. We did that for the build. They looked amazing. What I didn't realize is that my business partner, Chris, kind of called dibs on them. So those quickly came off my bike and onto his. So they look really good on his bike. They're a better length for his build. So I went down to 165 on these,
Okay.
Which is a good crank length for me. But I might be asking the 5Dev guys for another set of those because they're pretty awesome cranks. I really like those.
Sweet.
How it completed the look of the bike.
And then we did, now that we switched to these are the XX cranks.
Yes.
So we put a power meter on that as well. So it's got the power meter chain ring on here. So now you're at least able to get a little bit more accurate information through your training rides.
Yeah, it's a single-sided. Both of my bikes have single-sided power meters. Man, I don't know if I want the double-sided to see how uneven my pedal cadence is. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's, you know, probably knowledge is power in that sense, but this single-sided has been getting the job done for me, and it's nice having cadence up on my Garmin as well, trying to stay a little bit more disciplined with spinning out a little more. I used to be kind of a grinder with this type of stuff, and I found a benefit to watching my cadence, watching my power, and starting to spin things up a little more.
This bag is sweet. It almost looks like it was built for this bike. After a while, you take for granted having extra storage on the bike. And
opens up from both sides, has an extra strap on the inside. You can actually reverse this if that fits your frame better. This is made by Apidura with a collaboration with MAP. It's just a really good looking bag too.
Yeah.
It matches the frame color perfectly, really easy to pull on and off, wash as well. It's been awesome.
Sweet. And then, you know, just taking a look at, because I haven't looked too closely since we did it, the ride wrap is still sitting down so nicely. I mean, just protecting the paint, making sure you have protection against the elements and rock chips and that sort of thing.
Well, and like, we use our personal bikes as display bikes a lot for events. Like, we don't have the budget to go have these crazy show bikes. So we ride our bikes that we bring to shows. So I don't love washing my bike off a lot, but this ride wrap makes it really easy. If just kind of the frame's a little dirty, I can do a couple sprays of like an SSB or waterless wash and kind of wipe it clean and make it really look good for a show. I think one upcoming change I still need to do, and it sounds so silly that I haven't done it, is how I have these mapped. At first we mapped it where hitting 2 blips at once or 2 shifters at once changes my dropper. That requires 2 hands and your bottom to bring your dropper up and down. Also, if I'm drinking with my left hand, both of my controls on this side are to the same shift direction.
Okay.
So I think what I'm going to be changing here is I'm going to make this left side my dropper, similar to my mountain bike, and I'm gonna make this inner one the opposite of this one. That way I can drink with my left hand and I can shift.
You can actuate up and down.
Up and down,
yep,
and then
exactly.
dropper only takes one hand.
One hand.
You know, there's times where I need to like fit this in a small space and I'm off the bike, and if I could hit it with one hand and drop it, I'd be good, but now I'm like, have to hit, have to drop, and then back up. So that's something I'll be changing out. Here
and that's
shortly.
A free change. I mean, that's an easy map.
That's
you
what's
just
so
pull
cool.
out the app and make an adjustment. So that's pretty sweet. And then, yeah, so overall, you'd say we knocked it out of the park on this build. We kind of hit just about everything you were looking for.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. Like, I do see some people that have bikes that are in like the 16-pound range, and to be honest, like, I don't feel like my limiting factor is my weight on my bike. And this thing descends really well. It's got a lot of the weight kind of around here by the bottom bracket and the rear end, and I can use that to my advantage when cornering, knowing that it's not the whole bike is heavier, it's the dropper and it's the drivetrain back here. And that weight actually feels kind of good on the trail, and I find myself like pretty confidently descending around other gravel people, tend to be a little bit faster, so.
Sweet, yeah, and I mean, you're still new to gravel, so there's, you know, that just the factor of getting comfortable on a drop bar bike off-road. It can feel so weird coming from mountain to feeling like you're riding the most twitchy bike that you could possibly be riding.
Oh, totally.
And then through mountain bike trails. So.
And like the tire pressure change. Like, I ride my XC bike at 18
Same.
PSI.
Yep.
I ride this at 35 and 37.
Yeah.
Like, that's, if I just took my XC bike and upped it to that, it would feel a lot different as well. So there's a lot of changes. It's far different. It's such a cool addition to the quiver. Right now, my quiver of bikes is a Stumpy 15 trail bike, a hardtail pivot, less SL, and this, and I feel like I have the like perfect 3-bike combo.
Yeah, that, I mean, you get to go get rowdy on the Stumpy, you get to do some fun XC stuff on the pivot less, and then you can do some really long like gravel grinding days. And even if you wanted to, road bike riding. This bike is still super fast on the road the way that it's set up.
It's something I've yet to have done yet. Some of my road bike buddies are pretty core, and I think they just slowly drop away from me. But I'd love to get on a ride with some of my more casual riding friends and see how this thing hangs in there. It is interesting coming from mountain biking to this. Like, if you lose a group, they just like slowly pull away, and it's really hard to keep back up. Yeah, and then on the Crux, I think something specific that I did have an issue with was the headset.
Yep.
And you found a quick fix that allowed it for me to not have that headset issue.
Yeah, so a
anymore.
few of us at the shop were all having this issue. You know, me, Jake, and Thomas, we all have Cruxes. And I was having an issue where if I got kind of rowdy on it, my headset would start to rattle loose, and then I'd tighten it back up and it would rattle loose again. And I thought that, you know, the stem was pulling up on the head tube, but really what it is the bearing race in here, stock on the Crux, is plastic. And what's happening is as you tighten it down, it crushes a little bit more, and then you ride the bike through some rough terrain and it starts to mushroom out, and then you keep tightening it till that basically wears out. And that's actually super dangerous because that can wear through the front of the fork as well. So all I did was I found a aluminum, it might have been steel, I think it was an aluminum bearing race from an FSA headset. And I threw that in my bike, Jake's bike, and Thomas's bike. And that has been a huge change. Not only has the stiffness of the headset changed to where we don't have a loose headset, but we can actually turn the bike smoothly. But also I can ride whatever I want and I don't have to worry about that thing rattling loose anymore. So it definitely was that plastic bearing race. So this has been a really sweet addition to the bike.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing the whole series. You guys knocked it out of the park with building this bike. I'm excited to go take it racing.
Yeah, it's gonna be a blast. Thanks for sharing it with us. Thanks for letting us build this bike, and thank everybody for sticking around, watching the whole series. This was a really fun one for us, and we'd love to get to do more stuff like this. And your guys' support watching these videos and leaving comments, that lets us build more bikes like this. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.